everybody. Welcome back to the Yoga Sizes podcast and YouTube channel. I have Stephanie Mitchell here with us today. She is the founder of the Rolling Mat Mobile Yoga Studio. She worked with corporates, and she's also running a business that helps yoga teachers that want to kind of work with the corporate world, helping people in the organization. And so thank you and welcome for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. I'm really excited to hear about what you do, and had a couple of people in the past that work with corporate. So want to see how yours is, what yours is like. So let's start with your story, how you got started with yoga, how you end up working with corporate.
Okay. Yeah, so I used to work in corporate. I had a corporate job for a while, and I didn't mind it at all. I actually really liked it. I was traveling everywhere, and I'm a big travel person, and that's one reason why I have a mobile studio. But unfortunately I got laid off, and I'd had the job for so long, and I was going on this direction for so long that I didn't really know what I should do. So I actually went out west to California and stayed with a friend for about a month and did some soul searching and really started, thinking about the consistent things in my life that I love and that have always brought me nourishment, both mentally, spiritually, and physically. And the yoga practice has been a consistent in my life since college, since freshman year of college when I took my first class. And this was back in like 2006, 2007. So all throughout my corporate life, I practiced yoga, not really thinking that I would do anything with it. But yoga, my love of music, and my love of travel, those were the three things that I wanted to try and monetize on. And I didn't really know how or what, but while I was out in California, I came up with the concept of having a mobile yoga studio. Didn't know what it would look like. I didn't really know what my audience would be. I came home to Georgia. I got trained for my 200 hour, and all throughout I approached it definitely very yogic, but also from a business mindset as well. I wanted to learn as much on both sides as I possibly could. So I definitely got a ton of yoga knowledge, and it was beautiful, and I loved it. I didn't really get within training, a lot of yoga teacher trainings, they don't really talk about the business of yoga other than legality and, getting your business insurance. So I had to figure a lot of that out on my own. So I took a lot of trips and falls in my first couple of years. I did everything from music festivals to yoga at breweries, beer yoga, which I still do today, and they've become huge events. And then I decided to niche into corporate because I came from corporate. I knew the stresses of corporate, and I worked for a fitness organization fresh out of graduating my 200 hours to that brought yoga and CrossFit and Zumba to the workplace. And I kind of got a feel for how they handled things and how they did things. And I woke up one day and I just said, I want to have my own corporate yoga branch, and launched it, niched it. So that's really who I speak to. And then I got a flux of yoga teachers that were just like, oh, I've been wanting to do this. How do you do it? And so I started my mentorship program for corporate yogis. It's called the Elite Corporate Yogi Program. So
love the names.
Yeah, thank you.
To start this, how does it really work, the mobile part? Do you travel to places, or do you do this virtually with people, or?
It's an interesting question right now. So I come equipped with all of the equipment, the mats, straps, blocks, everything. So really, the only thing that the company has to do is sign the contract. I sign 6-month to full year contracts. I typically don't do less than 6 months unless it's an event, like an employee appreciation event. And I come equipped with everything. So they don't have to lift a finger. They just have to give me the space, provide me the space, and they all do. So before the pandemic hit, I was going to about 4 corporations. I eventually, I had to hire a couple other yoga teachers to help me balance out the work. And then COVID hit, and luckily, late last year, I diversified my offers. So I had built my virtual online skeleton, if you will. I just had to put the content in it. So, I pulled back because businesses were closed. The businesses I worked with were closed. And my virtual offer originally was just going to be in addition to the in-office corporate wellness program. And now that's primarily, that's what I'm doing. So all of my corporate clients moved over to my virtual platform, and they're honestly receiving even more benefit from me because, we can teach, I can teach more classes. I have more flexibility because I'm not driving place to place to place. And then I have a team of industry professionals that I've networked with that work underneath me. So we do a lot of nutrition workshops, I have a decor interior designer who started with corporate design. So she's helping people get like their home office spaces, zen and fit to where they like to go into the office space at home and work. Because that was a big deal for a lot of people. They weren't really equipped to work remotely at the time. So it's packed of value. It's got a pre-recorded library. We live stream, we have fun. It's very interactive. So right now it's virtual, and a lot of my companies are really enjoying that.
That's awesome. I really like that you're able to kind of not really like transition, but kind of moving more towards the online space because of what's happening right now. And I love the fact that, the whole space setting up is such importance, because if you don't have that space, then your mind's not going to be wanting to do yoga, and it's going to be hard. That's another question that I was going to ask, but you kind of answered it in terms of how do you prepare them to be more wanting to do it. And especially you're dealing with a lot of people, and it's kind of hard if they're not on the same page, or if they're not motivated, or not consistent with what it needs to be done to kind of just be on the same page.
Right.
Yeah. So you mentioned music and Zumba. So do you kind of incorporate your yoga kind of more dynamic, adding music into the mix and more dancing involved, or?
Well, I don't offer Zumba. Zumba was actually an offering of a company that I worked for in the past. Zumba classes for corporations, yoga classes for corporations. But I build, I have really awesome Spotify playlists. Those are very important to me. I've run into a couple situations teaching online because I utilize Facebook Live a lot, and you have to be careful of copyright laws when you use Facebook. So I haven't been able to use my playlist quite as much, but I do, have a pre-recorded library where I've been able to utilize my playlists there. And also through some of the Zoom workshops that we have like intro, outro music and things of that nature that I like to plug in. So the music and yoga to me, you have a really good flow, you have a really good playlist. I think it's just an even better way for your audience to connect with you. And personally, I think that's probably what I miss most about not being able to teach to the masses right now in terms of in person. Because the connection that you make with my style of flow and my playlists is just it's really magical. So but eventually I know it'll happen again with my events and stuff that I do, so looking forward to that reopening.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of music and playlists, I found a couple of sites. I don't remember them at the top of my head, but I'll share that with you afterwards, and I can even put it in the description of the video and the podcast. You can basically do a membership type of thing, pay, and then get commercial license, so you can basically use it for anywhere, like live, and you just have to upload or tell YouTube once that you have the license for, and then they won't bother to check anymore. So that's pretty neat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd like to learn more about that.
I want to talk about the challenges that you face when you're working with this population, this audience, this type of audience. So what are some of the challenges that you experience?
I think one of the main ones has been the time that it takes to actually get the ball rolling, because corporate's a different breed. And you speak to them differently. You really balance the softness of being a yoga teacher with the sturdiness of being a business owner. So I had a coach tell me one time, it's like combining, it's like the balance of being a dove and being a hawk. So I want to remain yogic because that's just who I am, and I'm a very genuine person. But however, you have to be really stern with corporate, and you have to be very to the point, and it's, a lot of kind of black and white. But I found also with corporations these days, a lot of them are so much more open-minded to, the green way of living and mindfulness and meditation, especially right now with everything going on. It's actually given the yoga industry a really good reputation. People are actually seeking how to find, mental balance, but they don't know how. So they're calling upon yoga teachers, which is great. But I would say, traditionally it takes time. Finding out who you should talk to. That's why networking for any corporate yogi out there is huge for us. Networking, going to networking events, having your elevator pitch nice and solid so people know exactly who you are, and showing face and finding out there who you should be speaking with, if at all possible, or at least get a contact that can point you in the right direction. Finding that initial contact is usually the biggest challenge, and then getting the ball rolling, which I've learned kind of how to streamline that process from doing it for so long. So I know what to provide and what to offer them in the initial call and the initial email to make them say, like, okay, we need to move this up quicker. We need to get the ball rolling on this more quickly. And then also for me personally, time management, balancing all of the things, personal life on top of being, a mentor, and also being a corporate teacher, and then leading events as well. That's kind of been, the balance of all those things. And I do it. I definitely do it. And I love doing it. But, right before everything started going down, I was looking at expanding my business even more. So I'm hoping that that's going to pick back up in the next couple months, and I can hire even more people to help me take on some of the load.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Speaking of routines and balance, so how are you balancing everything? I mean, you mentioned that there are certain things that you need to get balanced, but what are some of the specific actions that you're taking to have that balance?
So morning is my time. Morning is typically my most creative time, and it's also a time for me to really turn inward. So I have a 5-minute power routine where I recite what I'm grateful for. I recite my affirmations, and I let it go, and I'm open to receive. And then I also have started devoting kind of a split between working in my business, which is like the emails, the outreach, the follow-ups, all of those things, and working on my business, which is the creation, the new things I'm going to be adding to my mentorship program, or the new things I'm going to be adding to my virtual corporate wellness platform. So I really try to balance the time between working in it and working on it. Because if you're consistently working in it, you get burnt out. And then if you're always working on it, then you're not necessarily implementing. So it's really finding the balance of those two things, but they're both equally important.
Speaking of finding balance and also have time to do other things and be with family and have your own time to do what's needed for your health. And so what, like in terms of hiring people, like what are the tasks that you basically are wanting to do, and what are some of the tasks that you say, okay, I can hire out and let other people take care of?
Really right now it's more so the teaching. So I would like, I have a couple of teachers that do work for me, and I was able to provide them a couple of virtual classes during this time. But really kind of balancing out the class flow. That way I can concentrate more on going to the networking events, and, showing face and, getting the rolling mat out there even more. And then eventually I actually have someone in mind. I actually just spoke with them before this, some, other yoga teachers that work for me, that teach for me, kind of being the rolling mat ambassadors, if you will. So they can maybe go to a networking event for me, whether it's virtual or in person, because I've been doing a lot of virtual networking, and, spread the word that way as well. So, and then when it comes to like my mentorship program, partnering with people that, might be a little bit more stronger in things like tech, like what happens when Zoom messes up or something like that, so yeah, right now I kind of still want to be in charge of the administrative kind of thing. And then, still continue my personal practice and still teach, but I have a lot of classes. So I can definitely, kind of spread the classes around to other teachers.
So those are good strategies, what you can do and what you should delegate out so that you won't have to handle everything. And yeah, the teaching part makes sense because then maybe your clients can get a different feel of what other teachers' teaching style is.
Exactly.
Yeah. As for the style of yoga, type of yoga that you teach with them, is it like just on the mat, or is it chair yoga, or just?
So it really depends on the corporation. All of them are different. So with corporations that I work with, I have some that they really want to move. They want to burn some calories during their lunch break. And then typically what you run into with corporate is they want more of the mindfulness. They want more of the brain nourishing practice. They want more of the breath work and the checkout, the mental checkout versus the physical. And also what you find too is restorative yoga is typically more needed and also wanted than, fast-paced vinyasa flow. So what I do, naturally, I'm a foundational teacher. So I like to consider my flows like slow vinyasa flow, where, I'll put them in a pose, but I'll explain to them the anatomy of it and what's working and what's stretching versus what's strengthening, giving them time to get into it, giving them time to kind of take a break from it for a moment and maybe try to deepen or come out of it if they need to. Also the breath connection with the pose as well. And I just find that to be more effective. I find that to be more effective in my body, and I find that to be more effective in, a lot of who I work with. Before I even started working with corporate, the students that I had, they loved the foundation of it. So it's still work, but when you understand more of why you're in a warrior two, people can relate to it better. Like, oh, okay, I see why we're doing this pose. But for the most part, it is a lot of mental and a lot of like yin style restorative base yoga for them, because they're very tight, they're very stiff, and a lot of them they don't move a lot, they sit all day long. So that's what I primarily teach. But it really depends on, I do an evaluation of the company before I even get started, and I get a feel for what they're wanting so that I can speak directly to their needs and their pain points.
That makes sense. Yeah, those are different styles, and like you said, what they need. It sounds like, yeah, it depends on like the situation, right? Like you said, in terms of what they're really needing. So as for the length of the time frame, how long do they run for? Like 30 minutes?
45 minutes to an hour. And then meditations are usually about 30 minutes.
Nice. So what do you recommend for somebody who's just starting, just got their certification to teach yoga, and do you recommend them to start with corporate right away, or do you recommend them teaching at just like regular yoga studios or private sessions first?
I'm a pretty big, I don't know, I really like to just go for it. I come across a lot of yoga teachers that really have no desire of teaching in a studio. And not that teaching in a studio is bad. Studios are wonderful, but more times than not, I speak to a lot of yogis that have trouble getting jobs at a studio because of the studio might only hire people from their training, or, you know, they want you to teach for a year before you even audition kind of thing. Not every studio is like that, but a lot of them are. And so I always tell yoga teachers to, you know, start thinking about places that you've networked with. Like, for instance, when I was getting my training, I worked at a brewery and I was looking at the space and I was talking to the people and I was kind of getting a gauge for what their interests were. And I started fresh out of the gate with my own community events. And that's what really started building my reputation. I worked for the brewery, so they let me use the space, and we worked out a deal where, you know, they got, you know, like $5 per yogi that came, and then I got 10 or whatever the case may have been. So I almost think that it's more beneficial to start doing your own events, your own workshops, and start to build your reputation that way. And you know, think about your warm market of people that you have connected with throughout your life. It may not even be yoga related, but maybe you have connected with, you know, or you go to a restaurant that has a huge back space where you could easily hold like a yoga, you know, a fun like yoga event, and then, you know, have business cards or flyers and just build your reputation that way. Because, you know, typically from an event, I mean, they might start out slow, but there's also that element of cross promotion as well. So if you're partnering with a space, they're going to cross promote for you through their social media, their newsletter, inside the space. And you know, I had a lot of luck with that. And that's how I also got a lot of my corporate clients as well. Because if you're wanting to go into corporate with your yoga teaching and build a branch or a business around it, majority of your audience is going to be 9-to-5ers. People coming to your event, they probably work a corporate job. And that's where I've gotten a lot of, you know, I work with Whole Foods in Atlanta, and that's where that connection came from, was from a beer yoga event that I led.
Interesting. So I'm trying to think. So basically, another way to look at it is what they're feeling comfortable with, right? Yeah, and are they, you know, interested in approaching a corporate space, and if they're just ready for it or not.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even if they're yoga teachers that want to have private clients, I think having, you know, hosting your own events is good for that as well, because then you can tell people like, I'm a private yoga teacher, and you're already selling yourself to these people because you're teaching them, you know? So you just like go in with the mindset of, you know, when I was in my training, we were taught to teach to everyone. So people that have no idea what yoga is, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, like there's space for everyone. So if you can kind of go into it with that kind of mentality, and, you know, make sure that you keep it, like I typically speak to more of the beginner, but then I leave a lot of room for the intermediate and advanced. And they know, if you're an advanced practitioner, you know that you can, you know, kick up into crow if you want, you know, or handstand if you want, you know. So I think like your own events is going to depend, regardless what kind of industry or regardless where you want to take your yoga business. I think they're very helpful in terms of making connections. And then if you want to work in a studio, if that's your goal, like you want to work in a studio, own a studio, you know, I would just definitely shop the right one and make sure that their values align with yours, and that their style of teaching aligns with your style of teaching, and that you feel like it's home.
Right. Nice. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Now I'm thinking, like, in terms of the pricing, how would you, like, what is the average of when it comes to corporate yoga pricing?
Well, the thing about corporate and when I talk to yoga teachers who are telling me that they're struggling with income and things like that, if done correctly, which is what I teach in my program, I have basically a roadmap of action steps that walk you through the entire process. And, you know, I'm there for accountability and support. But the thing with corporate in terms of pricing is that it's high ticket. It's high ticket and it's consistent. I teach my yogis to sell 6-month to full year contracts. And if you bring enough value in that time, they're going to want you back, or they're going to invest in your online platform, or want you in for workshops, want you in for events. And other people, you know, people know people too. So people within that organization, they might have a friend that's like, well, our organization wants a wellness program as well, you know. So you also kind of network within corporate to get more corporate, essentially. So it's high ticket, and I don't, you know, I encourage, if you want to look at it from like a really broken down aspect, no less than 375 a class.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, if you're bulking up and adding more value, if you're doing more workshops, if you're doing classes on top of brain nourishing, you know, practices and workshops and things like that, and it's taking more time, you're going there more, or you're doing more online, then you add on. It's basically a list, a package of benefits is what I call it. So you want to beef up your package of benefits as much as you can, and that's what's going to sell you. You go into it just saying, oh, I'm a, you know, yoga teacher. That may not resonate as much as like, well, yoga classes, workshops, you know, even assisting with wellness events if they have those, bringing in, you know, people from your network. That's why networking is so important, because you can add to your value the more people you know, and that you can hire on to talk about nutrition, what have you. So yeah, I mean, a lot of, I've known teachers before that, you know, they charge 40, 50 bucks per class, and that's too low. It's too low.
Yeah.
And you have to really think about the time, you know, planning the class, driving to the corporation. For me, it's a lot of the setup. You know, I set up all the equipment. I have to clean the equipment, I have to break down the equipment, I have to load it back in my vehicle. So you have to take, you know, your time is precious. So you really have to consider how much time it takes you and how much energy you're putting into it, and don't undervalue yourself. Because if you're driving 30 minutes away to a corporation for an hour class for $40, 30 minutes, I mean, it's not really worth it when you factor in the drive time, when you could have been doing something else to benefit your life or your business.
That's so true. And sometimes when you price it too low, they might not think that you're going to provide a lot of value. I remember a couple of years ago, I got interviewed at a corporate place, and I think I probably mentioned the price too low. I mean, she seemed like she liked me and was demonstrating, you know, what she was looking for. But then she was like, okay, I'll give you an answer in a couple of days. And then she said, she turned me down, and I was thinking, maybe I set the price too low.
Well, yeah, if you set it too low, they don't see your value. They're like, why are they, you know, and I got that when I first, you know, started in corporate, when I didn't know what to charge. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, like 65 bucks, people would be like, really? That's it? You know? And I heard that a lot. And now when I approach a company and I'm like, you know, $1,500 a month, I don't get a like, wow, really? I get a, okay, let me talk to a couple people and we'll get this going. You know, I've never gotten a, oh, that's too much. And I think it's because, well, I know it's because of the benefits that I bring to the table and how I present it to them.
That's really great information. So yeah, that's really important. And you mentioned, what are some of the programs that you're offering to help people get started if they're interested in doing this?
So I have an elite corporate yogi program, and it's very unique in that I've been mentoring for a while, but this year I decided to put it on a Facebook group. So it's a private Facebook group, and you get expert advice from me, roadmap from me. There's a training dropped every week. There's monthly calls, Zoom calls, but you're working with me, but you're also working with other yoga teachers that are on the same journey. They want to be corporate yogis, or they want to grow an existing corporate yoga branch. And it's, you know, it's community. So, and that's a big thing with me in yoga. Yoga is unity. Yoga is community. So, you know, you're working with an expert. I like to have my mentees visualize it as a road trip. So you're in the car driving because it's your business, but I'm right beside you with a roadmap directing you on where to go. but you also have a team of awesome yogis in the back seat that are cheering you on. So it's 100% accountability, and it's really developed into something amazing. So it's exciting.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing all this with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As for like personal development and mindset and just getting wanting to think in that direction, so what are some of the recommendations in terms of like personal development stuff you'll recommend?
Well, so I can give a little insight of something that I offer my mentees. One of the first things that the first couple weeks of my program, we focus on clarity and vision and mindset. And I'm a very visual person, so I like to speak in visualization, but I have them make a clarity pamphlet. And basically on the left side, it's their current reality. On the right side is their future reality, what they want, their I am affirmations of what they want. And then in the middle are 3 to 5 action steps that they can take to get from their current reality to their future reality. And it's a really big mindset piece. You have to know, you have to really think about, what it is that you want and why. Like your why is the biggest. Like, why are you a yoga teacher? Why do you want to be a corporate yoga teacher or a private yoga teacher? Or a traveling yoga teacher? You have to be really solid in on your why. And then from there, you start to develop, more of like your mission. Like, what is your mission? So that's your strengths mixed in with your audience, mixed in with your why. And it's something that you think about, and it's something that you recite every day to keep you on your path. So that imposter syndrome might sneak in, which I know we all suffer from, especially as yogis or even in general, small business owners. You have that grounded clarity that you've already created and that grounded mission statement that you have that's going to steer the car in the right direction instead of, running off and not knowing what you're doing or trying to copy someone else.
Yeah, I love that. The visualization and writing it down definitely helps. So how do people find you? Like, what are your social media, your website, and how they can get access to the resources?
Sure. So my website is therollingmatadventure.com. And a really great way to find all of my links is on my Instagram and my link tree. So the link in my bio. And I'm at Rollin, Rollin Yogi. And then I have a free Facebook group, and it's the Rolling Mat Community. Mastering the corporate yoga biz. So that's a really great place to go if you really want to connect with me a little bit on a more personal level. And also there's a lot of other yoga teachers in that group as well, that you can connect with. So I'd say the group is probably the best way.
All right, got it. And I'll list all those in the description. And you mentioned something about the consultation, like a free consultation or something?
Yeah, so I offer connection calls for corporate and also for mentees, or yoga teachers. So if you're interested in learning more about becoming a corporate yogi, and it doesn't have to be your full business. I work with a couple of yoga teachers who they just wanted it to be a branch of their business because they see it as a sustainable and profitable source of income, but they also love their private clients, right? So they're doing both, and that's fine. You can do both. But there's also yogis out there that want it to be like their 100% source of income. So regardless where you are with that, I hold calls to get a better feel of where you are on your journey, and also give you a full blueprint of who I am and what I offer. And then for corporate, it's a little different of a conversation. I find out a little bit more about the company culture, if they've ever had a wellness program, and what they would like out of a wellness program. And then I build it based on what they need.
Oh, awesome. That sounds exciting and fun.
Yeah, it is.
Great. Thank you so much. I can tell that you're really passionate about what you do and love helping others to achieve the same goals. Thank you so much for being on with us today and sharing.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.